And today I'm going to try and tell you about the pros and cons of a motorcycle like the Yamaha YZF-R. Speaking about the features specific to the R6 series of bikes, the first drawback to note is the lack of adaptability for even somewhat long rides. This bike isn't designed to navigate our roads. Riding on other sports bikes isn't exactly comfortable as well. But the R6, it's simply a real torture instrument on wheels. The rider doesn't just sit in a fetal position, the legs hurting badly. On the latest models, however, they've been moved further towards the front wheel for better weight distribution. Yes, because of this, the bike handles corners better, but at the same time it exhausts the rider much more. My whole body starts to ache after riding 100 kilometers in this sort of torment. The hard sports suspension only worsens the situation. Yes, it's really good on the racetrack, but it drains you on quiet, everyday rides. Another feature of the R6 is its sharp response to throttle action in near zero positions at low speed. Due to this, on the motorcycle, it's difficult to maneuver at low speed, especially if the asphalt is riddled with bumps and potholes. You completely close the throttle, then slightly open it again, but the motorbike jerks suddenly, as if you turn the throttle halfway. Honestly, this feature is a bit hard to explain, but it's very easy to feel once you ride on the Fs. You don't even have to go a couple of kilometers. The last disadvantage of the Erky is definitely the miserable factory, which is awfully quiet, and even chokes every horsepower of the engine down to a pre-curb state. It's understandable, this is due to environmental regulations and noise requirements. Now let's talk more about the merits, because the R6 is indeed one of the best sport bikes. I don't even know where to begin. Look at the photos, you can see how sexy the Erka is. The last two generations are undoubtedly in the top 10 most beautiful plastic rockets of our time. Moreover, this motorcycle has stayed in stock condition for a while. It has practically spent its entire assembly line life, nearly 20 years, beating all its direct competitors of the same year in terms of power, maneuverability, speed on the track, and cutting-edge technology, except for brief periods like 2003, when the CBR 600RR briefly took the lead. Well, those are minor details. Of course, the R6 has all the benefits that other superbikes have. The ability to squeeze between cars, even in heavy traffic, attracting attention from girls, especially the type known as riders, and advanced fairing that protects from bad weather. Other than that, the R6 is just an awesome, incredibly cool 600cc sport bike. Genuinely one of the best 600cc superbikes in the world, particularly in its current state. Today I have an awesome motorcycle in my Yamaha 6 penultimate generation 2011. I really have it. To put it mildly, it is not quite standard. Probably it will not be very relevant to talk about it. Its specific features, this motorcycle is not for posers. Although they are of course the majority among owners, not only the R6, in principle all sport bikes, but this motorcycle, it requires a lot of training, like a real track rocket, and that's how it should be. And drive it around the city 200 plus, of course, is not the best idea. If you are thinking about buying an R6, then I recommend watching motorcycles from 2005 and newer. I'll explain why. In 2005, this motorcycle received for the first time a front inverted fork, radial brake calipers, and throttle valves of a slightly larger diameter, which gave the engine a meteor middle, that is, well, in principle, it was finally possible to ride it, at least at a more or less walking pace. There was no need to drive the engine into the red zone, of course, not to say that on the modern R6, in principle, there is a straight middle, but you can really drive it. You don't have to pile on it all the time. At 1500, you can rev the engine to get some effect from the motorcycle, some acceleration. Of course, models from the 6th and 7th years are even cooler. They first of all radically changed externally, and the motorcycle became very beautiful. a new frame appeared and a new shorter stroke engine that could rev up to 17,000 revolutions. And accordingly there was a slip clutch, of course, on the R6. It works, to put it mildly, not very effective, but in any case it will help the rookie 100%. It's better with it than without it. In 2008 the R6 slightly changed the riding position. Accordingly, here the driver was moved 5 mm forward to load the front wheel, and they slightly lowered it for the same purpose they lowered the clip-ons. Because of this, the fit became completely radical. Also from the 8th year appeared variable length intake tract called YCT, and there were also a bunch of minor innovations, but in fact they are no longer so important. So from the 8th year the motorcycle simply became, honestly, this is the best generation, and I recommend buying it. It's just impossible to find fault. If you get used to working a little abruptly with the gas at low revs and get used to the sitting position, then this is an ideal track rocket. Of course, the old R6S also have drawbacks related to operation and reliability, but they are not radical, and in principle, if you are warned in advance, then you will know what to look for and will not encounter a pig in a poke. If you at least understand something about motorcycles, at least in mechanics, yes, the motorcycles had minor recalls. For example, in 2000, the footrest bolt came off. Yes, because of this you could ride away with the footrest, even if you put it in gear, respectively. In 2006, there were problems with the steering column bearings. Well, this is easy to detect. If, for example, you clamp the front brake and jerk the motorcycle, then there should be characteristic tapping in the steering column. There was also one. I recall there were strange recall companies also. For example, in 2014, firstly, the motorcycles had soft wheels. To be honest, I don't know. It's more like some kind of marketing ploy to, if you draw attention to the brand with such a single company. Supposedly, when you hit a bump, this disc is more likely to dent, and accordingly, it could begin to leak pressure, and the wheel, accordingly, the pressure dropped. You could and decompose somewhere, for example, in a corner. Yes, if you have a front, the pressure in the front wheel will go away, but to be honest, I haven't found any confirmed cases. And another recall campaign in 2014 was associated with an unsuccessful batch of rods, forks, gear shifts. They could fail, due to which the motorcycle stopped working properly gearbox, and this could lead to a fall. Also, if you buy an old motorcycle 6, you need to understand that an immobilizer can cause trouble. When you start the bike, it starts cold, and as soon as it warms up, it starts to stall. It doesn't start anymore, then it cools down, starts up normally again, warms up again, stalls again, and so on, ad infinitum. Micro cracks that occur in the cylinder block. They expand when heated and compression goes through them, everything, and accordingly the motorcycle loses compression, stalls, then cools down, the crack decreases. It's noisy, but as soon as you hand over the money for it and bring it to your garage, you start dissecting it until you get to the cylinder head itself and the upper part of the block. In its upper part, you can find those cracks. Unfortunately, they're untreatable, only obviously the wise thing to do would be to replace the block, or more simply put, purchase a contract motor assembly. Apart from that, the R6 is a very reliable motorcycle, particularly if you're looking at models from the 8th year onwards, or at least from the 6th year onwards. With these motorcycles, all you need to do is to pay attention to the same things you normally would when purchasing any used motorcycle. From the used R6S, we smoothly move on to the new Yamaha R6 2017 model. Truth be told, I really want to give it a spin, but at the same time I'm scared of being let down by it. Yes, on paper the list of novelties looks quite impressive, including a new aluminum tank on my own. motorcycle. It's the usual steel and the magnesium rear subframe, plastic, aerodynamic, calibrated in the spirit of the new R1 LED headlights. The front fork is also from the R1 Kayaba 43mm, and traction control is 6-speed, and updated brakes and a lot of other little things, for example a new dashboard and so on and so forth, ABS. But for all that, old strangled norm, Euro 4 engine, old frame, and to be honest, I don't think this bike would be any better in stock condition like this ride than my R6, which has a titanium exhaust and racing suspensions and a damper and Brem's brake machine, a lot of other little things. So I'm looking at the test of the new R6 with apprehension, especially given its price tag. Given that the new R6s are driving in the World Supersport Championship no faster than the old R6. It all depends on the pilot. Everything is, as always, by the way, about pilots. I drive my R6 in amateur championships in